Hey, it's David. No music today, and that's for good reason. Now, today we need to talk about something that, like, someone opened Pandora's box, okay? And I imagine these thoughts are prevalent among a certain population, but I just can't even untangle the number of ways this type of thinking is not going to support your success, you achieving your dreams, you getting to where you want to go. If you want to focus on something else, if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to accomplish anything, if you want to sit on the sidelines this lifetime and decide that next lifetime it might be worth acting, don't listen to this episode. No, I'm serious. Like, shut this off if you've already taken an emotional beating recently. I'm giving you full permission. But for the rest of you, oh boy, we got something to talk about here. Now, in Spark Infinity, how I show up matters a lot. And I'm not saying it doesn't matter how I show up in other areas. That is certainly not the case. But I like to keep at least one channel open that's for me to be freely expressed. And I would not say that I've always been outright vocal about everything I believe, because frankly, that has been a moving target over the course of the last 8 years or so. Many of the things that I used to believe have been challenged and have changed. People have trouble accepting. In fact, I don't even think most of those people who used to be friends even listen to this stuff anymore. But in Spark Infinity, I'm a facilitator. And I'm there. And I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to interview just about anyone. It doesn't matter what they believe. It doesn't matter if they believe differently than I believe. It doesn't even matter if I disagree with what they're saying. I'm there to listen and to be challenged. Why? Because I'm not afraid of being challenged. And because I am in that discourse, and because I am in that back and forth on a daily and weekly basis, my thoughts and opinions on things could change because I'm listening with an open mind. An open mind doesn't mean I believe everything, but it does mean that I'm open to hearing what's being said and considering it from the viewpoint and the perspective of the person who's saying it. And as much as I hate to say it, I believe that is relevant for today's conversation too. I certainly don't agree. Just let me tell you up front. Some of you definitely need a smack upside the head, and I'm not going to be the one to deliver it. Not just because of distance, but because that's not something I do, because I'm too polite to do that to you. But some of you seriously need a smack upside the head and a reality check. Because the message that I continually hear, that I've been hearing more than a few times lately from different parties is, I can't create anything because of the conditions of the world. The conditions of the world. Okay, let's look at this. I have empathy for anyone who recently had a family member or a good friend pass away. I have empathy for someone who just got struck by a life-threatening illness. I have empathy for someone who just lost their home. Why? Because I've been through those things myself, and if I haven't been through them, then someone I know absolutely has been. You want to talk about physical burnout? I've been there too. I've done it too many times, more times than I care to admit, and it's not a place I intend to visit frequently. Let me rephrase that. I intend to remain healthy and well all the time. There is a yin and yang to life, or there is balance, if you want to think of it that way. There is tall and short. There is big and small. There is wide and narrow. There are many things that we can compare and contrast, and really, it is about contrast, isn't it? That's what I'm pointing to. There are many things in life that we can contrast, and I don't pretend to know, and I don't pretend to struggle with the things that you do, and you may not know the things that I struggle with. So what I'm saying is there are absolutely extenuating circumstances. There are times in life when it is absolutely appropriate to stop the grind and rest. And if some of you haven't heard that in a long time, and if some of you haven't taken a rest in a long time, I'm giving you permission right now. Book that time away. Book that vacation. If nothing else, book a few days off. Go watch a movie, go to the mountains, go sit in the hot springs. Do something for you. But if you have time enough to post about this on Facebook, that's not the condition you're in, is it? That's not the circumstance you're facing, is it? It's not like Uncle Sam or the government's come knocking at your door and escorting you to the nearest FEMA camp to be imprisoned there for all lifetime. At least I haven't heard about such things yet. Let me know if that happens to you. Then I can probably empathize with you much better. But that's not what we're talking about, is it? We're talking about a category of people that want to wax eloquent and intellectualize and sit back and think about the way life is and the crazy things that are happening, whatever crazy means to them. I frankly don't understand. And they want to pretend, or they want to think, or they want to blame outer circumstances for their lack of creativity. Again, I understand. Sometimes you get writer's block. Sometimes those ideas are not flowing. Sometimes you show up, you do the work anyway, and you consider it uninspired. Maybe others would look at it and say, that's beautiful, that's amazing, that's wonderful, but you feel the way you do about whatever work you're doing, and I'm not here to invalidate that. But if you have time, energy, wherewithal, and the resources enough to post to Facebook, that does not describe you, does it? If you're able to intellectualize and wax eloquent and put it all into pretty words, then we're looking at a whole different category of people that are saying they can't be creative because of conditions and circumstances, and yet are doing exactly that, which might be the most ironic part. They're stringing these words together in perhaps a poetic or intellectual way that flow and sound interesting and meaningful, but at the end of the day, are about as useful as a tissue paper flying in the wind. Here's just one such message that I came across today, a comment in a post on Facebook, of course. And I'm just going to summarize. To be honest, I'm kind of tearing it apart piece by piece, but here we go. First issue that they brought up, and they raised a few, is that this progressive narrative as the status quo is forcing us to give up our privileges. Remember what I said earlier about putting words together in a way that sound really good and really intellectual? Well, let's keep going. This leads to adopting flawed approaches that look like change, but only result in class divide. I don't know about the class divide or how intentional that is. I have a feeling there might be some stuff going on there. So far has not changed or affected the fact that I live in an 800 square foot suite and I earn a salary that's above what I was earning last month, and I still own a car, and I'm still able to buy groceries and supplements. I'm still able to live. This notion of division is something I can totally agree with, and if you're still one of the people that, I'm so sorry to burst your bubble, but like if you're watching the news all the time and believe that's real, you're in Disneyland, okay? And you need to find your way back to reality one way or another. But I guess that's not really what they're talking about. They're talking about the class divides, the rich getting richer. Okay, let's move on. We're using cars instead of public transport, so individual EV vehicles. Well, I think we still have some things to work out there for sure. I'm not certain that EV vehicles are the answer. What power are they drawing from exactly? I don't know why people don't think about this. They're drawing electricity from the same power plants that use coal and gas and all that type of stuff. Think about that one. But this person is saying, no, we should adopt and love public transportation as our primary means of transport. Whatever. We're getting fake meat instead of local seasonal eating. I tend to agree with that. I think we should lean more on farming. I think we should eat local and seasonal. Generally, I agree with that principle, but what does that have to do with creating and why you can't create? Do you not have access to real meat? Is that the problem? They control the funding of the arts, nonprofits, and what type of diversity is acceptable. What do you mean, like grants where you can get like $500 to $5,000? For them, that's not even pocket change. So what funding are we talking about exactly? And what are things you could be doing proactively to generate funding for your career? And why are you not directing your thoughts in that direction instead of talking about where the funding is supposed to come from? Why aren't you demanding some accountability from your government? They're supposed to be your employees. They're supposed to represent you. What have you done lately to ensure this happens? Have you written a letter to Congress? Have you talked to your mayor? Have you taken any proactive steps to ensure there's greater funding? And then they talk about Trump squeeze and planetary crisis and how this creates a need for emotional group feeling, which makes rational discourse impossible. It's because we're leaning on social media, not because rational discourse is impossible. We're not going to the right places and having the right conversations with the right people. More often than not, we're trying to crowhammer or crowbar conversations into situations where they don't belong. We're trying to call people out. That's not going to work. As for the Trump squeeze and planetary crisis bits, I'll give you points for creativity there, but to be honest, those are not reasons not to create. Those are pretty good reasons to create, and I don't know how true they are to begin with. They talk about groupthink and false solutions. How do they know what true solutions are? Are they so smart that they've identified how to correct these problems? Have they done anything? Have they taken any proactive steps towards quote unquote correcting or changing or fixing these things? Here's the weird part about most things. They don't need to be fixed. The first counselor that I ever saw, and I believe he was a career counselor, but he dealt in different fields and different areas, and he turned out to be very useful for me for a time as sort of a life coach or a life counselor. One of the first things he told me when I walked in the room into his office was, "I'm not going to deal with your past." So ultimately, I did have to find other forums and other vignettes, other venues or other coaches to deal with my past or to do it myself. I've had to take action in a variety of different ways, whether it's reflection or meditation or journaling or finding a coach or going through counseling. I've done other things to explore those depths. Not saying I'm done, not saying I've resolved everything. But if everything begins with me, that's far more worthwhile than pointing to external circumstances, things that are outside of us, as the cause of why we can't create. And their last comment sums it up, and you'll understand why I continue to come back to this notion that this has nothing to do with being creative or not creative. They say art and objectivity, and I don't know why they would put those two together. Art and objectivity cannot flourish under these circumstances. There's a certain saying that comes to mind. I don't know how it originated, but it often is thrown around in, let's say, network marketing contexts or leadership contexts, even entrepreneurship. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. Now, for many reasons I've already pointed, I don't really have much reason to believe things are tough right now. Do let me know, because I'm really curious. Like, I want to be corrected if I'm wrong in this area. And you're more than welcome to come and tell me why things are so bad, because I don't get it. But there are many artists who succeeded through adversity and in fact flourished in tough times. These names, or at least some of them, should ring familiar. Michelangelo, Rembrandt, Botticelli. Just 3 artists, just a few examples of people who did great work when quote unquote times were tough. And guess what? They probably were going through real tough times. Not the kind of stuff that we're talking about, not the Trump squeeze, whatever that means. I have not been squeezed by Trump and don't know anyone who has been. Not to say that someone hasn't been. I'm sure you can find someone. That's not really the point. The point is, why is that stopping you from writing your next song or your next poem or your next book or your next play? So at this point in the conversation, I need to insert something because I didn't want to go back and re-record, and I also don't want to spend another episode getting into this. I could dedicate an entire episode to what I'm going to share here, but maybe that in a different context, maybe in a different space, it would make sense to do so. I want you to understand that I'm not asking you to do something I wouldn't do. And again, I don't really understand this whole, I saw it again today, that this whole groupthink thing is impacting someone or affecting someone in a way that is impossible to describe and quantify. I don't understand why groupthink is stopping them from taking action. Like, please do explain it to me if it makes sense to you, and if there's a really good reason why that's affecting you. I understand that other people affect you. I understand that society and politics and culture and all those things can impact you. But if you're at home and you have autonomy and you're able to record your music, or if you're able to pull up a notepad, or if you have an easel and a canvas and you're able to paint and draw, if you're able to do all those things, why is quote unquote groupthink stopping you from creating? Shouldn't that just be the subject of what you create on? So I wanted to describe some of the conditions under which I created 3 of my books, and realistically more than that, but I guess it was 3 to 4 books. So basically the writing and creation of the Music Entrepreneur Companion Guide, Productivity, Performance, Profits Blackbook, Digital Nomad, and the Renegade Musician. I was working on all those books. I didn't necessarily complete all of them. I think I completed 3 of those, though, while all this was going on. I was at least working on all 4 of those books as I was living through the conditions I'm about to describe to you. I recently posted something on Instagram, and it's a nice summation, so I don't have to get into all the details right here, but in bullet point form, here's what I was going through as I was still working on what I would consider my art and my expression. 2 years homeless, writing garbage for a tyrant, which is true, and it really annoyed me. Nearly scammed out of everything. That's not a joke. Hit with a lawsuit. That happened. Filing for consumer proposal, which is a step away from bankruptcy, just barely saved. Watching every client and contract vanish. Could not even explain it, but everything kind of had to be torn down in early 2024. Surviving on grains, and by grains I mean stuff like rice and oatmeal, okay? That's my main source of grains. Beans, spirulina powder, and maybe occasionally some potatoes. That's it. It was about $50 of groceries for 6 weeks. Not $50 per week, not $50 per day, $50 for about 6 weeks of groceries. I was surviving on that for a while. Selling my beloved guitars and amps. Look, I managed to hold on to my best instruments, my favorite instruments. Haley is still with me. But let's just say it like it is. Nobody really wants to get rid of their instruments, do they? And finally, grieving my grandfather. These are the conditions under which I wrote those books. Get it through your skull. You can create under conditions that are less than favorable. So let me conclude by saying this. The acres of diamonds are before you. I know we touched on that in the last episode, and it remains true. Just as true today as it did last time. But you're not in action. And you know what? That means I've failed you. I take responsibility for the action you haven't taken. Whether it's for the Trump squeeze or for some other weird reason. Sorry, did I say reason? I meant to say excuses. These are excuses for not acting. Why are you not making music right now? Why are you not working on your next blog post? Why are you not planning your next tour? What is stopping you? There are at least 50 people listening to every episode I publish on this podcast, sometimes way more than that. There are at least 700 people on my email list, and I know about 30-40% of you open, and yet I haven't seen 200-300 of you downloading Your Wish Is Your Command, like I said in an earlier episode, or buying the Renegade Musician for a whole $4.99. If you can't afford $4.99 for your future, for your career, you are in desperate times. I should be seeing dozens of you. I should be seeing hundreds of you flocking to get these resources, to get your hands on these, and to sink your teeth in, and to read, and to listen, and to implement, and to go out and do things that's going to better and further your situation. Why? Because bettering your situation will mean bettering the world's situation. It starts with you, not with what's outside. No more excuses. Stop listening to this show. The moment it ends, you're going to go out there the next second, not the next minute, the next second. You're going to go to work on something to get it done, to finish it, to complete it. At least, at the very, very least, to advance it. I'm out. Unlock the secrets to skyrocketing your productivity, boosting performance, and maximizing profits with my latest premium guide, the Productivity, Performance, and Profits Blackbook. Tailored for independent artists and entrepreneurs, this comprehensive resource is your roadmap to turning ideas into reality. Say goodbye to abandoned projects collecting dust on your shelves or buried in your hard drives. It's time to bring your vision to life. Grab your free copy of the Productivity, Performance, and Profits Blackbook now at davidandrewweeb.com/blackbook. That's WIEBE. Don't miss out on the key to unlocking your success.